guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Jimmy, and if you guys are new to this channel, I make industrial design videos teaching you how to become an industrial designer. To become an industrial designer nowadays, there's one specific skill that you really need. This is knowing how to use 3D programs. The staple 3D program for industrial design is SOLIDWORKS. So whether you want to become an industrial designer or you just need to learn how to use SOLIDWORKS, this is going to be the video for you. 10 years ago, guys, they weren't even teaching 3D programs or SOLIDWORKS in design schools. For you to learn how to use a 3D program, being able to 3D print from it and creating renderings from it shows that you are not just this old school designer who doesn't know how to do all that new high-tech stuff. So thank you so much for selecting me being your guide. I'm going to do my best to kind of show you guys around. This is a video series, guys, so this is going to be part one, and it's only going to show you guys some of the quick walkthrough, show you guys some of the sketches and using planes and knowing what buttons to click on your mouse and on your keyboard. Later, we're going to go ahead and jump into the 3D aspect of SOLIDWORKS, where we're going to be turning the sketches that we make in this video and turning them into 3D in the next video. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss the later videos. And then towards the end of this video series, we're going to go ahead and design a simple product. If you guys follow along with me, you'll have your very first SOLIDWORKS portfolio piece. So let's jump into the computer and I'll show you around. Alright guys, so here we are in SOLIDWORKS. It's going to be a pretty clean interface when we first launch it up. And for this tutorial, guys, I'm going to be using 2019 version of SOLIDWORKS. But if you're using 2018, 2017, or when 2020 comes out, 2021, it's all going to be pretty much the same thing. They always just have minor changes each and every year, making it slightly better. But the overall fundamental things that I'm going to be teaching you guys in this video is pretty much going to stay about the same. Nothing has really changed since when I first started using SOLIDWORKS. So the first thing I do is pretty much go to File, and if we want to start up a new product, we'll go here and click New, and a window is gonna launch up here giving you three different options. So we got the part, assembly, and drawing. For part mode, essentially it's going to be a 3D representation of a single design component. For assembly, we have a 3D arrangement of parts and or other assemblies. And then drawing, we have a 2D engineering drawing, typically of a part or assembly. So I usually don't mess with the drawing part. I usually just do part or assembly. And honestly, it's really just part. This is where I learned how to use SOLIDWORKS, but I do use assembly every once in a while. Assembly is usually when you're dealing with a lot of different complex parts and they all have to kind of join together in a way. And so I use assembly every once in a while, but mostly I use part. So let's just go ahead and launch up part and click OK. Alright guys, so this is what SOLIDWORKS looks like when we first launch it up in part mode. Just a quick walkthrough. We have our orientation window up here. We have a couple buttons up here. Not too important right now. I'll explain it to you guys when you're ready. We have our standard file, edit, view, insert, tool, windows, and help buttons. But the main thing I want you guys to focus on right now is these tabs that are right here. Specifically, just the first two tabs, the feature tab and the sketch tab. So if you go ahead and select the sketching tab, you'll see a bunch of tools that are at the top. And if you change the tabs, you'll see that those tools end up changing. So for the sketching, it's mostly just going to be 2D. And then for feature tab, it's going to be all our 3D tools. So I'm going to show you guys the 3D tab in part 2. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. But for now, let's take a look at the sketching section. So here we can see there's a bunch of tools where it allows you to draw lines, trim entities, convert entities, offset surface, and I really don't use any of these buttons over here. The next very important part, other than the tabs, is going to be this area right here. This is our feature manager tree. And so our feature manager tree is going to show us some important things. Mostly right here is going to show us our planes. So we're going to be sketching on these planes. So right here I have my front plane, my top plane, and my right plane. And so we're dealing with 3D, right guys? We're going to be building and designing in 3 dimensions. And so these are going to be the 3 default planes that they give us. So let me go ahead and show you guys some of the controls on your mouse. So go ahead and hover your cursor over the planes and click down on the mouse wheel. You'll able to rotate your part just like this. In order to zoom in and out, go ahead and scroll up and down with your mouse wheel and you'll be able to do that. So with those two together, you're able to rotate and zoom in and out just by using your mouse wheel. We're going to be sketching on one of those planes, so let's just go ahead and do that. So make sure you're in your sketch tab and click the sketch button. So as we select that button, it's going to prompt us in that yellow section there to make an action, and essentially it's asking us to draw on one of these planes. And so we have to select one of these planes. We could easily just click on the front right or top right here, but good habits to have for SOLIDWORKS is to make sure you click on this little arrow button, and our feature manager tree is going to drop down where you can then select your plane. So the feature manager tree allows us to select the plane properly. So let's go ahead and click on the front. And here we are in sketch mode, and this is going to be the orientation window. The orientation window is going to allow us to snap to essentially the view that we want. So all we have to do is just click these buttons. If you actually don't have the orientation window opened up right now, it's because it's closed and it's not pinned. So go ahead and hit your spacebar and it should pop up just like that. Then go ahead and hit that pin button that turns blue so that it'll continue to stay there even when you click out of it. Here we have our viewport options. So we have our single option, which we're currently on. We have our duo option showing the top and bottom. And then we have our front and right. And then we have 4 quadrants right there. But I usually don't mess around with those. I stick with the single one. And so guys, in order for you to tell if you're in sketch mode, always look at this section right here. And if you see that icon, that means you're in sketch mode. In order to exit sketch mode, we'll go ahead and click that green button. But if we didn't like what we sketched, we'll click the red X and it'll just exit out without saving our sketch. We're gonna go ahead and stay in sketch mode, and I'm gonna start off here drawing a circle. If we click the circle, they give us 2 different options. I'm gonna go ahead and click the center option. This is the one that I use pretty much all the time. So with your left click mouse button, go ahead and click down and drag out and click again to finish the circle. So this is how we create a circle sketch. You can see at the center right there, we can go ahead and click down and move it around so we can move our circle. And same goes for the outside. Go ahead and click on the outer line and we can drag in and out to change the size of the circle. So let's go ahead and click the center of the circle, and if we move it to the left or to the right, the top of the origin, the little red arrow that you see right there, there's gonna be these helpful guides that pop up, and it's gonna help you get our sketch to where we want it to be. If we actually snap it directly to the origin, this is gonna be an introduction to relations for you guys. So over here is gonna be all of the list of your relations. It's also gonna show up on that little green box as you guys see, and essentially relations lock in our sketch so that it doesn't move around when we don't want it to. To delete that relation, go ahead and click the center of the circle, then click the green box, then hit the delete button on your keyboard. Now you're able to move your circle around and there's no more relation. I do though want to snap to the origin, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that, and we're gonna now dimension our circle. In order for us to do that, go ahead and click the drop down menu on the dimensioning tool right there, and it's going to give us a couple different options, but I'm going to click the smart dimension. That's my favorite one. And in order for us to use it, go ahead and click the outer part of the circle, drag upwards, and then click again. So this is going to be a window that pops up and it allows us to change the size of our circle in inches. So I'm just going to change it to, I don't know, maybe 1 for now, and then hit enter on your keyboard. If I wanted to change that dimension, go ahead and click that area right there, and then you could go ahead and change it there. And then you could also hit that green arrow to exit out once you've changed it what you want. But let's say you didn't want inches, you wanted millimeters. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Let's go ahead and exit out of sketch mode. We don't want to click the red X, we want to click the green ones. Notice we don't see that green icon or the red X anymore. That means we are out of sketch mode. Okay, so let's go ahead and change the units. Go ahead and click on tools up at the top, and all the way down here, click on options. and a window is going to pop up, but mine opened up on my other monitor, so I'm going to drag it on over. And here at the top, guys, you're going to see two different tabs. Go ahead and click on Document Properties, and under Document Properties, go ahead and click on Units. Under Units, there's going to be a couple different options for you to select. Right now I'm in inches, but I really want millimeters, so it's going to be right above. Go ahead and click that option right above, just like that, and then hit OK. Let's go ahead and check to see if that works. So on our left side, guys, our feature manager tree, at the very bottom you see that it says sketch 1. This is going to indicate the very first sketch that we drew, that circle, right? So as we click the sketch, there's going to be a little window that pops up, and it's going to give us a couple of different options for us to adjust our sketch. I'm going to go ahead and click that one right there. It says edit sketch, and now we are in sketch mode, and you guys can see right here with the icons we are in sketch mode, and that our inch turned into millimeters. If you find yourself changing from millimeters to inches, you can actually just work with both, and all you have to do is change the last two letters. So IN would be working with inches, and then MM will be working with millimeters. Since we changed it from inches to millimeters, it will default and always show millimeters, but you can obviously always use inches by typing in that IN at the very end of your number. So I'm gonna go ahead and change our circle here to 10 millimeters. Then I'm going to go ahead and exit sketch mode by clicking on the green icon up top, and using my scroll wheel and clicking down on it, I'm able to rotate around. So we did sketch on our front plane. If I wanted to snap directly straight onto the front, I'm gonna go ahead and click the front button in my orientation window, and it'll snap me right to the front there. So let's go ahead and make another sketch, guys, a second circle. So click on the sketch button. It's gonna prompt us again to select the plane that we want to sketch on. So up at the top, go ahead and click the little arrow, and our feature manager tree is going to drop down. Then we are going to select the top plane. So we can actually snap to the top plane. Right now it's showing the front plane. I could rotate to it, but I could also click two buttons. I can click the top button, or I can click the normal to button. So the normal to is going to essentially snap us to the plane that we have selected when we first entered into sketch mode. That's a very handy button to use right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and draw now our second circle by clicking the circle up at the top, then clicking the center one. Go ahead and start your circle by starting in at the origin and clicking outwards. Then go ahead and click your dimensioning tool, click on the outer circle, and click again. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this the same exact size, 10 millimeters, as our first circle, and exit out of sketch mode by clicking on that icon. So let's go ahead and rotate around and see what we have. So this is what we have, guys. We can see that our first sketch on our front plane, and then one on our top plane. And on our left side here, guys, we can see that we have our sketch 1 and sketch 2. That's the first and the second circles that we drew. So our feature manager tree is going to keep track of all the different commands and sketches and features that we end up doing, and we can go back and adjust them and change them as needed later on. So let's go ahead and draw in our third circle. So I'm going to go ahead and click the sketch button. It's going to ask me which plane I want to sketch on. Go ahead and click down that drop down menu and select the plane that I want. I'm going to go ahead and select the right plane. Go ahead and snap to the right plane, and we can see that it looks like a plus right there, because that's one sketch that we did for the front and then for the top. So I'm gonna go ahead and select the circle tool once again. So for that very first one, snap to the origin, drag out, and snap out again. Okay, then I'm gonna go ahead and grab my dimensioning tool and dimension this thing the same size as the first two, which is 10 millimeters. Then let's go ahead and exit out of sketch mode. So as I rotate this around, guys, we can see all three different sketches, and on our left side there in our feature manager tree, we can see sketch 1, sketch 2, and sketch 3, each sketch that we drew. So we can see the three different sketches that we drew: the first one in our front plane, the second one in our top plane, and then the third one on our right plane. And as you guys can see, when they all come together, it creates this ball type of effect. Kind of gives you an idea of how these planes work. In order for you to hide one of these sketches, say you didn't want to see it, go ahead and click the sketch and then click on that little eyeball in the window. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of them, and they're all hidden just like that. If I wanted to reveal them again, go ahead and click on the sketch in our feature manager tree and then click on the eyeball just like that. And it say I wanted to go back in time, so instead of hiding it, see this little blue bar right here, I can actually drag it upwards and it'll just kind of roll back to before I made those sketches. So I rolled back and I hid the third sketch, I hid the second sketch, and then I can roll back and hide the first sketch. So that's just a couple ways of hiding things and kind of going back and seeing your work. So that doesn't really probably mean much to you guys right now, but it'll come in handy later on. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead now and show you guys how to enter into sketch mode in a slightly different way. So what you can actually do is select the plane that we want first. So go ahead and select your front plane and then hit sketch. So it's gonna know already that we want to sketch on our front plane because we selected it first, so we don't have to do it afterwards. So that's just another way to do it, kind of saves us a little time. Okay, then go ahead and hit that normal too, and it'll snap us to the front view. And then I'm gonna show you guys this line tool right up here. So if you click the drop down menu, you're gonna see 3 different lines. Go ahead and select that very first one. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys how to use this. Go ahead and click and then move over and click again. You can see the behavior, how SOLIDWORKS lines work here. When I finish my second click, it assumes that I want to make another line. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue clicking and closing it up. Okay, but what if I actually wanted to just make a simple line and I didn't want to continue my line? Go ahead and select the same line tool again, and click once, move over and click again. Now hit the escape key on your keyboard and it ends that line just like that. And in order for you to move it around, you want to change it up, go ahead and click the line and you can kind of see how it works. You drag it up and down, you can move it where you like. And at the very ends, guys, there's these points. You can go ahead and grab them and move them, change the direction and all of that. So that's how you move the lines around, but let's assume that, let's say I want the line to be perfectly horizontal. I mean, you could always eyeball it, right? You can just make sure to see if it's actually horizontal, but what if it isn't? That's where relationships comes into play. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys the relationships again. So go ahead and select your line, and on the left here, you're gonna see a horizontal, a vertical, and a fix. So these relations are going to help you snap to that position. So if I click horizontal, it's going to snap to be horizontal. And if I go ahead and select the line, you can see that little green box right there, and it's showing a horizontal line. So I can try to move it as much as I want and it'll move, but it's always going to stay horizontal, perfectly horizontal. So as you guys can see, relations can be pretty important, but let's say you wanted to delete it. If you want to delete it, go ahead and click that green box and hit the delete key, or you can go up to this little window right here and then hit delete and it'll delete it there. And so all of your relationships will show up in that little box right there. So you could have multiple relations on one line, just depends, and they can also conflict with each other. So you could go ahead and kind of change it all up in that little box or in the little green boxes next to the line. So as you guys can see here, I made the vertical relations and it's always going to stay vertical. I'm going to go ahead and delete that by clicking the green box and hitting the delete key, and now I can go ahead and move my line however I want. I could also add relations to this line up here. Just click by the line and then go ahead and click the horizontal line. So if I wanted to make this like a box, right? A perfectly square box, I can go ahead and do that purely just by using relations. So I'm gonna go ahead and click the line right here, and then I'm gonna make it also have a horizontal relation. So there could be actually more relations depending on which line you have. So if I actually select both of these lines at the same time by clicking one line, holding shift, and then clicking the other line, more relations will show up. So let's go ahead and try that. So as I click both of them holding shift, you can see on the left side there, it says add relations, and now there are a list, more than 3 of relationships that I can actually select from. You got equal, perpendicular, parallel, a bunch of them, horizontal, vertical. So let's try this equal one. What will that do? So if you go ahead and try the equal one by clicking on it, it's going to make both lines that I had selected equal in length. So as you guys can see here, both lines are equal in length, but that means they're not in line with each other. So if we actually wanted it in line, like if we wanted that line to be perfectly above the bottom line, let's go ahead and select this line right here, and then over onto our relations, go ahead and click vertical. So it's going to make that line vertical, forcing the top line and the bottom line to be in line and perfectly parallel to each other. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at this center line. So the center line is going to be right below the normal line right above here. It's going to be the second option, so go ahead and select that. And it's pretty much going to work the same way as the normal line. Just go ahead and click. You can go ahead and hit exit and it'll end our line. So center lines are very handy and helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how I usually use these center lines. So I'm going to go ahead and click the corner of that square and the corner of the other square. So now you can see there's a center point that it gives me in the center. So if I wanted to draw a circle perfectly in the center of that rectangle, you guys can see that I could go ahead and snap right into it. So that's how you actually get all your sketches being perfectly, centered and perfect and all of that stuff. So center lines are very, very handy, and you guys will see later down the line when we start getting into part 2. So let me show you guys this third line. I hardly ever use this line, but I'll just show you guys real quick how to use it. And the idea of this one is that your first click is going to be the center point, and as you drag out, it's going to continue on both ends of your center point. So that's that line. I hardly ever use that one. Let's go ahead and now delete this all by highlighting everything, clicking highlighting, and then hit your delete on your keyboard. So I'm going to show you guys now the other circle tool. I already showed you guys the first one. I hardly ever use this tool, but essentially the idea for this one is you click once, twice, and then you could click a third time, and then that's how you create another circle. So if that's handy to you, go ahead and use that one. Okay, now this spline tool, this is going to be a really good one, guys. Go ahead and click the spline tool. It's going to be the very first one. I hardly ever use those other ones, so go ahead and click that. And now go ahead and draw like a wave shape. So by clicking up and down and click again and again, I'll create this wave shape. And so you guys can see there's a couple points on this wave shape. There's these endpoints that are right here. I got one right here that I clicked, another one here, and the very last one. And now you guys can see that if I click on the endpoints, I can go ahead and manipulate my spline. If you guys notice, if I actually select one of these vertex points, you guys can see there's these arrows that pop up. And within these arrows, there are 3 different markings. There's the diamond, there's the triangle, and then there's the center vertex point. Let me go ahead and scroll in. So we got this point, we got that point, and we got that one, and then we have the very end. So each one is going to do a different thing. So this diamond shape, this one you're able to rotate this spline as much as you want, and you guys can see when I rotate it too far, it kind of makes it crazy. If I select this triangular one, I can go ahead and expand and stretch it out, but it's not going to rotate. But if I want to do both, let me go ahead and click on the very end. And so this one, I can go crazy now. I can rotate, I can expand, I can do it all. So the spline line can get pretty crazy, guys, and you could really mess up. So you got to really be in control. And with these lines too, you could also add relations to them. So if I'm going to go ahead and click on the very end vertex right here, you guys can see here that I have my relations as well. So if I go ahead and click on the horizontal one, it snaps and be perfectly horizontal. I could go ahead and do the same with that one. Now if I do it vertical, it'll go ahead and snap and be vertical just like that. And I could go ahead and make sure that all my lines are exactly going in the direction that I want. This is just an initial walkthrough, guys, and it might not make total sense to you right now, but later when we start making stuff, it'll make much more sense. So let's go ahead and continue, and I'm going to show you guys the square tool right here. Just the first two. Go ahead and select the very first one, and this one's going to work by clicking once, dragging out, and clicking twice. So this one, you're going to be able to draw a square with the corners, but another way how to draw a square is go ahead and click on the square again, and let's click on the second option, the center one, and go ahead and click once into the origin, and then go ahead and drag out.
And you finally get your back.
So remember when I showed you guys the center line, we could actually turn any of these harder lines into center lines. So how you do that is go ahead and click on one line, and then on the left side, it's going to allow you to change them into a center line. Here, right on this for construction, I'll go ahead and click on the little box, and it'll turn that hard line into a center line just like that. And I could go ahead and change it back and forth by unchecking the for construction box, and it'll go ahead and turn me back into a regular line. And so this is going to come in handy later on, but I wanted to show you guys that now in this walkthrough. Hey, let's go ahead and continue. I hardly ever use this one, but it's essentially an arc. And what you do is you start from the center and you drag out, and then you can rotate around and you can draw an arc that way. I hardly ever use this one, guys. All right, let's go ahead and do ellipse. I don't want to make this video too long. Go ahead and select the ellipse tool. The very first one, go ahead and click on the center origin, drag up, go ahead and click again, and then now you can go ahead and select the width of the ellipse. So I can go ahead and make it nice and fat just like that. And I'm going to show you guys exactly how you can manipulate some of these ellipses using that center line that I keep talking about. So what you want to do, you guys can see that I have a ellipse that is horizontal and an ellipse that is diagonal. If I go ahead and select my center line, and I draw from one point, this point right here, to the other point of my diagonal ellipse and hit escape, I can now add a relation to this center line. And if I want to do vertical, it'll snap that center line vertically, making my ellipse horizontal and long. All right, let's move on, guys. Let's go ahead and try out this slot tool. I hardly ever use this one, but you know, essentially you can make like this track and field pill shape kind of a shape. Barely ever use this shape right here. But let me go ahead and actually show you guys a more useful one. This is gonna be the polygon tool. So let's go ahead and select the polygon tool, and down at the bottom is gonna change, and it's gonna show a number 6 right here. So that's telling me that there's going to be 6 sides by default. So let's go ahead and click on the center origin, and you guys can see the preview there shown in yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and click right above the origin, and it's going to give me a hexagon. So I can change the number of sides by changing this number right here. So if I change it to 5, it's going to give me 5 sides. If I change it to 4, it's going to give me a square. And then if I change it to 3, it's going to go ahead and give me a triangle. So I'm going to go ahead now and click on this green check, letting the program know, SOLIDWORKS know that I'm done changing the number of sides. Set by default, it's going to continue giving me triangles. But let's say I wanted this triangle to be vertical. Let's go ahead and select that center line tool and draw a point from the top and the point from the bottom. And then if we select the center line and hit our vertical relation, it's going to make my triangle be in the right orientation that I want. It's not going to be all diagonal anymore. And then I'm going to show you guys this fillet tool right here. So this is the sketch fillet tool. So how this works is I'm going to select this line, and then I'm going to change my radius right here. So I'm going to give it like a 1 or a lower number because I think it was a little too big before. So let's go ahead and do that again. So if I go ahead and select both lines, you guys can see that the preview there, it gives me a little radius. I'm going to continue it. I can do it on all corners. Hit this OK. It's just kind of giving me a warning right there. Boom and boom. And then hit OK in the little window. Essentially, it's just telling me that my relations and my endpoints are changing. And then to finish it all off, I'll go ahead and click that green check mark right here, letting me know that I'm done doing that. So you're gonna be entering into modes, as you guys can see, and so you gotta make sure to tell the program that you're done with that mode. Like just right now, if I wanna exit out of sketch mode, I gotta make sure that I click on one of these buttons. So if I go ahead and hit the X, it's going to eliminate my sketch. So as you guys can see here on the left side, you guys can see there's no sketch 4. There's sketch 1, 2, and 3, the initial circles that we made, but there's no sketch 4, and that's because I hit that red X. All right, so let me go ahead and show you guys some very last tools finishing off the video, and we'll go ahead and move on to part 2 in the next video. So go ahead and enter back into sketch mode, and now I'm going to show you guys these trim entities. So let's go ahead and make a line. And in order to have our trim entities work, we got to have multiple lines. So this is the trim entities tool right here, that button right there. So let's go ahead and select another line. I'm just going to go ahead and use my center line, but you could really use any line you want, guys, even the circle shapes. So I'm going to go ahead and snap from the origin and draw up. So now it meets up with the center point of the very first line. Go ahead and click on the trim entities button, and it's gonna give us multiple options right here, but one that I use most often is this one right here, the power trim. So go ahead and select that one, should be selected by default. And how it works is if you click and drag around, it's gonna create that squiggly line. And I'll show you guys how it works right here. So go ahead and click and drag through that line. So it cut off that line right here, right at the line where I made the second line. So if I click and drag again, I can trim off that second line, giving me just that very last line. Let me show you a better example actually. So I'm gonna go ahead and sketch this crazy star shape. And you see how the lines are all intersecting together, crossing over each other? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and use the power trim, and now you can trim away all of the sections that I don't want, where each line are meeting up with each other. So you guys kind of have an understanding of how this trim entities work. Very last thing, guys, I'm gonna show you guys this offset tool. This offset tool is gonna be super handy. So let's go ahead and make a line. Go ahead and drop it down, and if I click my offset line right there, I'm going to click on my original line, and you guys can see there's a preview of how much it's going to offset. So I could go ahead and change the distance right here. You can go ahead and punch in whatever you want. And then I could click on this reverse button and it'll switch directions for me. So if you want it to go up, you can also click that little reverse right there. And once I'm done, I'll hit the green check mark. So if you guys can see right here, we have my little dimension. If I double click that, you can go ahead and change it in this area right here, making it further or closer together, whatever you need it to be. So let's just go ahead and I'll try it on a box. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw a box, then go up and click on the offset tool, and it'll immediately offset my box just right here. So I'm gonna go ahead now and exit out by clicking on the green arrow, letting SOLIDWORKS know that I'm done with my offset. All right, so that is gonna wrap up this video, guys. It's gonna just a very boring video, kind of showing you guys the interface and all the tools and all the sketching stuff and planes and orientations. So in the next video, I'm actually going to show you guys how to create a three-dimensional object with these sketches that I showed you in this video. So if you haven't yet, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss part 2, where we're gonna actually jump into 3D. So also, please, if you learned something, I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button. It'll really help me out with the YouTube algorithm and all that stuff, and it'll get this video shown to more people. And then also leave me a comment down below if there's anything else you'd like me to talk about. If you have any questions about anything, just leave it down in the comments. Alright guys, I'm really excited for this series and actually getting into designing something. Also, if you have any suggestions on what I should design, let me know down in the comments as well. Alright guys, my name is Jimmy, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.